A few months ago, a video went viral showing Japanese football academy players displaying unbelievable technical ability. Many people were surprised by it and started asking the question, how has Japan improved this much in recent years? But anyone who follows Japanese football already knows that this did not happen overnight. This is the result of a system that has been consciously built for decades and is only now truly beginning to bear fruit. Just look at the last 4 years. Japan defeated Germany, then Spain. This March, they defeated England. And last November, they came back from a 2-goal deficit against Brazil and won 3-2. Yet many people still talk about them as if they were just a nice, disciplined Asian team that surprises someone once every 4 years and then gets knocked out of the World Cup without really achieving anything major. But modern-day Japan is no longer the same Japan it was 4 years ago. Anyone who has seen Captain Tsubasa probably knows what it is about. But for those who do not, briefly, it is a Japanese anime that follows the football career of a Japanese boy. And what is especially interesting is how Brazil constantly appears throughout the story. Not only because Tsubasa always wanted to play there, but because he completely idolized Brazilian footballers. In fact, his first foreign club was the Brazilian side São Paulo, and Brazilian football is portrayed throughout the story almost like a dream destination. And what if I told you that this is not a coincidence? That this is not just a fictional story, but reality itself? Because the rise of Japanese football is partly thanks to Brazil. The current national team's style feels like a mix of Brazilian technique combined with Japanese discipline and perfectionism. And now, before the 2026 World Cup, it looks like this entire system and philosophy has finally matured. But let's take a closer look at how these two completely different nations became one of football's most unique alliances. If we look at the map, it would be difficult to find two countries that are this far apart and have cultures this different. Yet somehow, through football, a special connection formed between them. To fully understand it, we have to go back to the 1980s. At the time, football was far from being a popular sport in Japan. Baseball dominated the country. Most football clubs operated as company teams: Mitsubishi, Nissan, Yamaha. These were not traditional football clubs, but corporate organizations where the players were often not even full-time professional athletes, but working people who also played football on the side. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, Brazil looked like a completely different universe. There, football was not a hobby or a secondary sport. It was practically part of the national identity. Pelé, Zico, Romario, later Ronaldo, and Ronaldinho. Brazilian football represented freedom, creativity, street culture, and flair. And from Japan, they watched all of this, from afar. Partly with envy, partly with admiration. At the same time, Brazil is home to the largest Japanese-descended community outside of Japan. Millions of people. Certain parts of São Paulo genuinely feel as if Japan and Brazil met halfway. And sooner or later, this connection also appeared in football. Long before the first professional league was created, Brazilian footballers were already playing in Japan. Rui Ramos, for example, was born in Brazil but became a true icon in Japan and later even played for the Japanese national team. He was not simply a naturalized player, but the face of an entire era. A man who showed Japanese audiences that football could be passionate, technical, entertaining, effortless, and still driven by a winning mentality. And this felt completely new in Japan. Until then, discipline, respect, and structure dominated almost every sport there, just like in everyday life. Then came a player who showed that football could also be played in a looser, more instinctive, more creative way. And people simply could not get enough of it. But the real explosion came in 1991. Japan decided that it wanted to learn, and as quickly as possible. So they brought in a Brazilian legend, Flamengo icon, and one of the most technical number 10s football has ever seen, Zico. When he arrived in Japan in 1991 at the age of 38 to join Sumitomo Metal, later known as Kashima Antlers, he did not come only as a player. He also came as a teacher. He helped shape an entirely new football philosophy and laid the foundations of modern Japanese football. It was largely thanks to his influence that the country launched its first professional league in 1993. Zico turned his own club into one of the most successful teams in Japan, but his greatest impact was not measured on the pitch. He earned so much respect that many people in the country simply referred to him as the god of football. And he is also one of the main reasons why the Brazilian mentality became embedded into the DNA of Japanese football. It is no coincidence that after this, more and more stars arrived in Japan. Gary Lineker, Dunga, Leonardo, Litbarski. As the league became more professional, football itself also became increasingly popular throughout the country, and because of this, people started paying much closer attention to the national team as well. And then came the first great trauma. Doha, 1993. Japan was on the verge of qualifying for its first ever World Cup. In the final moments of the qualifier against Iraq, the dream was already in their hands. Then came one final goal. Iraq equalized, and Japan missed out on the 1994 World Cup. This is known in Japan as the tragedy of Doha. The players collapsed on the pitch. An entire nation watched in shock as one of the greatest opportunities in its football history disappeared within seconds. But as often happens in stories like this, the trauma did not only break something, it also started something. Japan realized that if it wanted a world-class national team, it had to take football far more seriously. It needed to build a proper system. Player development had to become far more organized. Clubs began connecting themselves to local communities. Schools, academies, universities, and local teams were created. Slowly but surely, Japan built a football development machine. And this is the biggest difference compared to many other developing football nations. Japan did not wait for a golden generation. It did not hope that 5 geniuses would randomly be born in the same year. Instead, it built a system, one capable of producing top players over and over again. The first major result arrived in 1998 when Japan finally qualified for its first World Cup. It did not go well, 3 defeats and an early exit. But even reaching the tournament was already considered a huge step. In 2002, when they co-hosted the World Cup, Japan advanced from the group stage. Suddenly, football no longer felt like an imported sport. A unique Japanese football culture had started to emerge. Stadiums, flags, national pride. Fans began calling the team the Blue Samurai, and that name started to mean something. After 2002, the Brazilian connection returned once again. Zico became the manager of the Japanese national team. And although the 2006 World Cup ended in disappointment, his era was still important. Because this was the first time Japan truly tried to play in a Brazilian style. Short passing, more creative attacking football, more freedom. But this also created a problem. Freedom by itself is dangerous if there is not enough stability behind it. So in the following years, the focus shifted towards strengthening the defensive side of the game. And after that, improvement became visible at every tournament. In 2010, Japan advanced from the group stage as a much more organized team, and the country's first true superstar emerged, Honda, a confident, charismatic leader who was quickly noticed by Europe after the tournament, first by CSKA Moscow and later by AC Milan. In 2018, Japan defeated Colombia, becoming the first Asian national team ever to beat a South American side at a World Cup. Against Belgium in the round of 16, they were already leading 2-0. And for a moment, it genuinely felt like Japan was finally crossing the line and about to reach the next level. But Belgium came back into the match and eventually won 3-2. Then in 2022, Japan almost performed a miracle. They were drawn into a group with Germany and Spain, 2 former world champions. On paper, it looked nearly impossible. Then Japan defeated both of them. And in the round of 16, Croatia could eliminate them only through penalties. And perhaps this was the tournament where the entire world finally realized that Japan truly deserves attention. This was the moment when 3 decades of work visibly started coming together. From the Brazilian influence came technical bravery. From Japanese culture came discipline, organization, and team spirit. But one thing was still missing: true superstars and personalities. Now, however, it seems they finally have those too. Because while there were already a few Japanese players in top leagues in 2022, most of them played for mid-table clubs or received limited minutes. The team's strength still mainly came from unity. But now, the situation is completely different. Japan could easily field an entire starting 11 made up of players competing in Europe's strongest leagues. There is Takefusa Kubo, one of Real Sociedad's most dangerous and technical attackers; Wataru Endo, a Liverpool midfielder; Daichi Kamada, who plays for Crystal Palace; or Hiroki Ito, who found his place in Bayern Munich's defense. And if we look at this team's performances recently, they speak for themselves. Although they lost once to Australia in their qualifying group, they still won the group comfortably. Then came the friendly matches. And yes, people can say that national teams do not always take friendlies completely seriously, but this list is still impressive. They defeated Bolivia, Ghana, and Brazil. And in their most recent 2 matches, they defeated Scotland and England in March as well. They lost only once, against the United States. And from this perspective, it feels completely realistic that they could advance from a World Cup group containing the Netherlands, Sweden, and Tunisia. And once they get through the group stage, anything can happen from there. But eventually, they have to break the curse of the round of 16. Because Japan's story always ends in the same place, among the final 16 teams. And personally, I think 2026 could finally be the year they do it. Because the question is no longer whether Japan can surprise people. We already know they can. The real question is whether they can finally do more than win 1 or 2 big matches, whether they can mentally, physically, and emotionally carry an entire tournament from start to finish. What do you think? How far can Japan go at the World Cup? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.